Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. Time to talk fantasy football and waiver wire walkthroughs with Dave Richard and Jamey Eisenberg for Week 7. I will tell you, though, look ahead to Week 8. Lots of buys, so potentially Week 7 has something to do with about a 2-week stretch that we'll have in fantasy. All right, here are the aforementioned fellas from FFT, Dave and Jamey with us here. So let's start with quarterbacks, Dave. Where do we want to go in terms of some of the selections on the waiver wire this week?
No Josh Allen this week, and fantasy managers have been living without Lamar Jackson for a couple weeks now, so they've already got somebody there. But if you don't like that guy and you know you need to replace Josh Allen, let's go old. Let's get Aaron Rodgers going up against the Cincinnati Bengals as the top quarterback to add off the waiver wire. It's a short-term deal. Love him this week against Cincinnati, and kind of like him next week when he takes on the Packers. It's a tough matchup on paper, but we've already seen one revenge game for Aaron Rodgers this year. We will see another one. So if you are missing one of those quarterbacks in Week 8, that includes Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold is one of those guys right now. Rodgers can be your ticket, not just Week 7, but also Week 8. That's a name to know. Jackson Dart is really at the tip of the tongue of a lot of fantasy managers. He's had at least 19 PPR points each of his 3 starts. He's got Denver this week. You just saw what the Broncos did to Justin Fields. It's tough to expect a big game from Jackson Dart, but if he does have that big game, then you know that you can trust him the week after that. That's Week 8 against Philadelphia. We've seen him do well against the Eagles before. And then 2 other names, Mac Jones. He's been hot and cold, but if there's no Brock Purdy, matchup against Atlanta isn't that bad. And Bryce Young against the Jets in week number 7. Not the worst matchup in the world for a guy coming off one of his best games of the season.
Mac Jones and that Kyle Shanahan offense has been humming. Kendrick Bourne the last 2 games has been fantastic. But there you see the Bryce Young numbers, projections with the Jets coming up, who are playing that game in London against the Broncos. Okay, so those are some of the quarterbacks. Jamey, if I go to you with some of the running backs, a couple weeks ago it was Tampa Bay situation, Arizona situation. Last week it was LAC's situation with the Chargers. Have we learned anything on that front, and where are we targeting that particular position group?
We absolutely have, and just rewind 2 weeks ago, because we were up here talking about go get Kamani Vidal, maybe get Hassan Haskins. So what have we learned? We learned it's the Vidal show, and I think that's going to be the case moving forward after he tore up the Miami Dolphins for 21 touches and over 120 total yards. So can he do it again? And it's a much tougher matchup in week number 7, but you're looking at maybe Omarion Hampton out for more than just the 4 games. So Vidal has a chance to be a very good number 2 running back. I like the fact that he had 3 catches in that game and caught a touchdown. So Hassan Haskins only 7 total touches in that game against Miami. So I like the setup for Vidal as a number 2 running back. When you get past him, there's a little bit more question marks, but we do have at least some semblance of an answer of maybe what the Cardinals are going to do now, because we got the report before week 6, Sunday morning, that Zonovan Bam Knight was going to be the starter. Now, that wasn't exactly the case. Michael Carter got the first snap, but Knight did play more snaps, 37-32. He scored a touchdown. We probably feel a little bit different if he didn't score. It's not an easy matchup against the Green Bay Packers, but at least you're looking at someone who could be a potential flex option. There's a change at the coaching staff, in the coaching staff with the Titans. No more Brian Callahan. So will we see Tyjae Spears maybe get some more work coming off his best game, over 9 PPR points? Can he be a flex option potentially? Tyler Algier, 11 or more PPR points in 3 of his last 4 games, so he's doing a good job sharing the work with Bijan Robinson. It's just been awesome. And then we're looking at some handcuff options here: Jaden Blue, Isaiah Davis, Emmanuel Wilson. Look, we don't want to be stuck in a situation where you're chasing the next Rico Dowdle, where you're chasing the next Rachaad White. Put these players on your bench, because if there is an injury to Javonte Williams or Breece Hall or Josh Jacobs, you have that guy already on your team before it happens.
Just to button up on Vidal, if you have an option to waiver wire and put in the fab, what percentage would you recommend here, Jamey?
At this point, it probably comes down to your record. So if you don't need him, I'm probably spending about 30%. If you do need him, you're sub 500, or just chasing the running back position, you might have to spend all of it. Yep.
Okay. All right. Good to know. It turns team dependent, situation dependent there. Wide receiver seems like a rotating wheel of every week, Dave, of who to start, especially those with 3 wide receiver sets.
And it's not a wheel of fortune. It's a wheel of despair. There just really isn't a lot out there at the wide receiver position, but there are a lot of names. There's a lot of decent guys that might be able to get you between 10 and 12 PPR points, except for one name. Do a double check to make sure that Kendrick Bourne is on a roster. And if he's not, he's got to be your number 1 priority at the position. He's been playing too well for the 49ers to put him on the bench. But otherwise, the list isn't great, and it's headlined by Josh Downs of the Indianapolis Colts. We've seen him now each of the last 2 weeks getting at least 11 PPR points. He's got the Chargers this week. He's got Tennessee after that. A good short and long-term option as like number 3 PPR receivers, flexes, bye week replacements go. And I want to talk about that week 8 schedule. There are 6 teams on bye. We talked about that. At least 6 stud receivers are going to be on bye that week. You need to double check your roster. Say your roster for week number 8. See how many wide receivers you're missing, and then go looking for wide receivers. You might love to have a guy like Josh Downs, on your roster. Jalen Coker's another name. We've been talking about him for weeks. Not everybody's been adding him because they want to see him play first. This is a guy to get ahead of, should be the number 2 target getter in Carolina. Might even take a little bit of work away from Teteroa McMillan once he's back. He's a big slot receiver. Other names on the list, Alec Iomanner with Tennessee. He should get an opportunity to put up some good numbers. Calvin Ridley's a little bit banged up. Jamey mentioned the coaching change there. Could work out well for Iomanner to get more opportunities. Kayshon Boutte had a really great game last week. Can he build on that? That's somebody that you can stash, and if he has a good game in week number 7, you can use him in week number 8.
Buttoning up on Coker, Lee Getz popped up a couple times the last week. And pop is relatively, is what I'm saying.
He's had a couple of plays.
Coker, clear number 2 behind 10.
I think he will be, yes.
Okay. All right. And then there's the tight ends. Jamey Boyd, Brock Bowers injured, George Kittle on IR, Trey McBride holding the flag there for the top tier tight ends. And then everybody else, we talk about it, you could potentially stream. There's really no bad options out there, just depending on what you're looking at, right?
It's actually a great week. It might be the best position to go get somebody off the waiver wire. So if you're looking at a flex option, don't need just a wide receiver or running back. And Kittle might be back this week, so that's a great thing for the position. But you're looking at Harold Fannin Jr. right now. We talked about him in week 1. He kind of disappeared since then. But when Dylan Gabriel took over, he's got 14 targets in 2 games with Gabriel. And now David Njoku dealing with that knee injury. Fantastic matchup against Miami. So even if Njoku does return, you could still stream Fannin as a low-end starter. But I like him as a top 6 tight end with David Njoku not expected to play. After him, another great option, Mason Taylor. He's the Will Smith meme in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when nobody else is there, because you got Garrett Wilson out now. Josh Reynolds might be the best secondary option. I think Mason Taylor is going to get all the targets he can handle in a great matchup against the Carolina Panthers. Top 12 tight end easily for this week. And then you start to go to some guys that are injury replacements that may have some short-term appeal, but also some long-term appeal. Cade Otton, we do expect Mike Evans to return, but Otton should have an opportunity still to be a go-to option for what could be the best game of the week between the Bucs and the Lions. Michael Mayer, you mentioned Brock Bowers is out. Mayer came back last week. We talked about this last week, Tommy, that go get Mayer, even though he's come back from the concussion, had 5 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown, so that offense can cater to the tight end. And Mayer, the only guy in town right now. Aronde Gatson stepping up without Quentin Johnston. Evan Ingram, revenge game this week. And Tyler Higbee, we don't expect Puka Nacua to play. He just had his best game last week against Baltimore. 4 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown on 4 targets. He may be the second best option for the Rams. Don't forget about Tutu Atwell. It wasn't on Dave's list, but a guy that could step up. Last year, had 4 games without Puka Nacua on the field. He had 5 targets in those 4 games, 11 or more PPR points, and we know that they're going to throw the ball against Jacksonville. So good option to pick up this week.
That's a week 7 guy. Week 8 he's on bye.
All right. Good point on the tight ends, by the way. Some teams will be sporting 2 tight ends in their starting lineups given the options that we have out there. Okay. We're going to finish things up with stash or pass. We've got 4 players. Dave first, Jamey after for 2 players, and we'll flip the order here. So stash or pass, Dave Richard, Geno Smith.
Oh, he's droppable. He's as droppable gets, and then the week after this, he's on bye, so you can't even use him anyway.
I don't even know if I start him in a 2-quarterback league. That's how bad he is.
Yeah.
And offensive line has been bad, but he's also been terrible, as you see the matchup that he's got against Kansas City and the projections. There he is. Jamey, Dave, Heath, whoop, not even there. All right.
Sportsline's got him high.
They do have him particularly high, Stephen O's team.
Not a starter in a 2-quarterback league, though.
Tyrone Tracy with Cam Scadaboo's emergence, Dave Richard.
If it's the deepest of leagues, I don't mind stashing him, but otherwise it's Scadaboo's backfield. So on a scale of 1 to 5, I'd put him as like a 1.5.
Yeah, you can get rid of Tyrone Tracy there.
All right, next up is Jerry Jeudy. Although it's stash or pass, I feel like some people have him. They've just been benching him, Jamey. So is he worth starting now? Can we do Jerry Jeudy as a starting wide receiver?
I actually don't mind him this week in 3 receiver leagues. You're looking at a guy that just had 13 targets last week and now taking on the Dolphins and maybe no David Njoku. So this is actually a very good week to trust Jerry Jeudy if that target share is going to be there. So I said he was a drop in the waiver wire column last week, and then he comes out. Didn't do much with the 13 targets, but again, much tougher matchup last week. This week it's not that difficult. I think Jerry Jeudy could be good for you this week.
If you lined him up against some of the receivers that we talked about, would you rather start Jeudy?
Jeudy over every single. So Kayshon Boutte's my favorite receiver to add this week. Boutte
You'd start Jeudy over Boutte.
They're close. I would start Jeudy over Boutte. Yes, I would start Jeudy in this week's matchup.
Okay, and then we talked about tight ends. Jamey, Pat Freiermuth.
No.
He wasn't on the list.
I don't know if he was drafted.
No, after they signed Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth became non-existent.
How about he might be the third best tight end in Pittsburgh? Because Darnell Washington, they've got this giant tight end named Darnell Washington who's been getting a couple of catches lately, and defenders have had a hard time taking him down, and Jonnu Smith is obviously there. I think this is the first time we've talked about Pat Freiermuth in like 6 months.
All right, shout out to Pat. Guys, certainly appreciate it. Jamey and Dave, check out Fantasy Football Today. They did the pod with Adam Azer earlier today. Scan the QR code. Check him out on YouTube. And he's got the Dynasty aspect, too. So make sure you check out the entire family of podcasts with FFT.